Welcome to today's episode of 10011101
I hate that title.
oblique 786 oblique
I hate
Irfan
that
hates
title
that
too.
title. This is a technology show, and in this show, we're going to be talking about whatever meets our fancy. You'd like to know who's with me today? In the studio, I have Irfan Kheiri. Irfan is supposedly Pakistan's first animator. That goes back a long way. I think his white hair will explain themselves to you. With us today is also Ahmed Ansari, who is Pakistan's first interactive designer and interaction designer to be precise. And I can tell you that as soon as this video goes on YouTube, we'll have someone from Creative Chaos write a comment under it saying that no, Ahmed is not Pakistan's first interaction designer, and actually Irfan's friend Shakir is Pakistan's first interaction designer. I'm sure that will happen because this is what happened with my last article. Shakir wrote a huge rejoinder of half a page saying how Tuesday was not Pakistan's first digital agency and that Creative Chaos was way better than anyone else.
Creative can revel
years.
in that thought for the next 20 years and still make websites, keep making websites.
Excellent. So let's start our discussion today about what HD is. Now we're shooting this episode on a new Sony camera called the PD177, which is not an HD camera, and yet because it shoots in a 16:9 format, Irfan, anamorphic format, people actually think that it is HD. And we're actually shooting this on 16:9 just to fool you guys, because it's going to be shown on YouTube. Now, Irfan, can you actually tell us what true HD actually is?
First of all, I'd like to address one comment. I mean, what Ahmed just said. He said something about 900p, right? What did you mean by that?
That's not full HD.
No, but what is 900p?
What is 900p?
900p is just a display standard. When you have a 16:900 display, they market it as 900p and they say that it's HD, but it
First
really
of all,
isn't.
there is no resolution as 900p.
No, but it's just a marketing gimmick. They just give it a nice title and they call it 900p to fool people into buying it.
No,
Thinking that
then
it's
what is it?
What?
What is it actually then?
It's nothing. It's not HD.
Then what is it?
It's just a resolution. It's a standard display resolution.
So you're saying it's actually not 900, it's 960p, and there's 720p as well. So,
It
you're saying
depends
that's
on
not
the aspect
HD.
ratio, but the
You're saying 720p, 960p is not HD.
no.
Why not?
Then what is HD,
One-
Irfan?
HD is just an aspect ratio.
So what is the aspect ratio that is HD?
16:9. It's a wider aspect ratio than the normal 4:3 that is standard definition.
But
And
isn't
it has more resolution.
resolution
It has more resolution.
That's it.
Even the least of the HD resolution, 720p, is more than the HD resolution.
Well, that's true. If you're looking at it from an aspect ratio point of view, then yes, anything beyond a standard 4:3 display resolution could be called HD. But then that's not
HD
the way.
is specifically all these formats:
Higher
720p,
definition.
960p, 1080p. They all come within the HD definition. So you can't really say okay,
but then you're not looking at the fact कि आपके जितने भी आजकल formats हैं, ठीक है, let's take Blu-ray for example.
Blu-ray is a method of
Yes, of
encoding.
course, encoding, right?
Yeah.
But in what do you call it, in marketing lingo, when this is usually something found when you go out and you buy a monitor and they tout it as being, now you can watch movies in full HD.
Yeah, so the monitor has the aspect ratio for HD. So
It has that, yes, it has that capacity. But here, are we talking about a specific aspect ratio, or are we talking about any aspect ratio that is larger than SD?
no, we're talking about specific 16:9 aspect ratio in 720p, 760p, and 1080p, which is the definition of the common definition of HD as we have it.
So this 760 is
720.
what? 720 is what? The horizontal pixels?
No, that's the vertical. They always take
That's
the vertical.
pixels. So what are the horizontal pixels?
I think it's 1024.
Okay, so it'll be 720 by...
No, it's like somewhere around there. I'm not. It's
It's
like
1080.
960 or it's
It's
10
1080.
10.
So if a student wants to shoot a film
1080 or
and show it on
1024
a very
maybe, I'm
large
not- I
screen,
don't
what
remember.
resolution should they be shooting at?
Well, if you want to show it, that's the whole thing. If you want to show it on a large screen, then better to go with the largest resolution. That's a 1080p. But if you are shooting for, say, normal television, this thing, you can shoot on 720p. I don't know why people shoot at 1080p.
So what do you think?
Hence the term full HD, right? They reserve the term full HD exclusively for 1080p.
Yeah, it's another marketing lingo.
Well, there's an Indian brand out there which is marketing Asli HD now. They're saying that we shoot on Asli HD, we edit on Asli HD.
That means they're just editing on 1080p. If that's what they're claiming, then they're probably editing on 1080p.
Can we compare HD with Red?
Yeah, HD does. Red does HD plus larger resolutions.
What are these larger resolutions?
I think.
And what's the point of going so larger resolution?
You want cinema quality.
What is cinema quality?
No, it's very.
What represents film? That means 2K resolution, right?
But then when
actually, it's 4K resolution is the common lower denominator for film.
4K.
4096.
4096. So Red can take you to that.
Yeah, I think it can.
But only in terms of resolution, it doesn't have the sensitivity, that particular sensitivity and look that film has.
Well, we're going into a separate area.
That's an aesthetic argument which we'll try to avoid aesthetic arguments in this program.
No, it's not an aesthetic argument. It is actually a correct technical argument that it doesn't have the tonal latitude that film does. Neither does any video camera or digital technology yet. We just don't have that tonal latitude.
All right. Now, there are some gadgets and devices that can play HD movies in today's marketplace.
Marketing lingo, most of it.
Really? The Sony Xperia, the Nokia N8. There are other phones as well, and then there are devices that are made for movie watching, the DVD player type.
I mean, a lot of these devices, like I think the new iPhone, and which has a very high resolution display, and I think, but still, it's like not more than 720p. It's less than that. So, again, the HD is probably what they're referring to as aspect ratio.
It's an aspect ratio thing and not necessarily a resolution
thing.
Okay. And do HD films necessarily come with any sound levels as well, like Dolby or?
I'm not a sound guy, so I don't know anything about that.
Second nerd.
What are you asking?
Some HD films they come with Dolby stereo recording or
but
like
Dolby and THX and all of these are all against standardizations, and to be very frank, well, I'm the wrong person to ask. Again, I'm not a
He's not a sound guy as well.
We'll get a sound guy in on next program to talk about this. Irfan, what's your favorite handheld tablet type gadget?
Well,
that you're looking at.
My favorite handheld tablet.
Handheld tablet type gadget type thingy, because with the introduction of the BlackBerry Playbook, I think the Playbook has actually changed. Because the BlackBerry Playbook doesn't have a GPRS modem in it. It doesn't have a SIM card. It's meant to connect to the internet through your BlackBerry device, and it's a sort of a standalone. That's why I'm saying it's like a gadget. It's not the phone type thing which expanded in size like the
Playbook is heavily
Galaxy Tab.
The Playbook is heavily limited in its functionality. Actually, if I had to go for a tablet, apart from the iPad, of course, which again is limited in its functionality, Apple doesn't support Flash, which is a big no-no in my book. I'd probably go for the Samsung Galaxy Tab.
You would?
Yeah.
But it's smaller, right?
It is smaller and.
Which is actually, which could be a plus point.
Actually, I think that's not a plus point. I mean, I used to think until I've compared the two, I've got an iPad and a smaller iPad tablet, which is probably the same size as the, Galaxy one. And the experience is quite different. By now my eyesight has gone a little weak.
Well,
So
You're
but
ancient
I'd
prehistoric man that
now,
you are.
for me, I'd actually appreciate the added portability because it's something I can probably stick into my pocket or my
yeah, it's gonna
backpack and
stick
carry
out
around.
really, even
Yeah,
that
I don't think it's that
size.
small.
Well,
It's not
I can
really-
stick it into the side pocket of my backpack then. Portability is something. I don't want to hold a device when I'm reading something in two hands. I want to hold it in one hand.
Right now, there is a
And so that my other hand is free. And this is again from
No,
a purely
I think
user
you can do
interface.
that with the iPad as well. I mean, you can hold it,
If it's in
especially
your
with
lap.
the iPad too. I mean, it's lighter. I guess I haven't used that. Used iPad the one, but
I think from a user experience point of view, smaller and more portable, and of course lighter, translates for better, user experience. You have one.
yeah,
hand free,
I
you can
like
hold
the
it.
slightly larger experience, and the experience is not just the size. It's what's inside the
UI as
interface,
well.
the UI, yes, everything, how it works.
Well,
That
interestingly enough, the war seems to actually be between the Google Android and Apple,
It's a
the
war of
manufacturer
interfaces.
of devices, right? It's as if an operating system is taking on a device.
yeah.
It's almost an apples oranges scenario, no?
It is a user experience war.
It's a user
Always has
experience
been.
war. So, in your opinion, which is better, the Apple/iPad?
Well, I haven't really used Android's latest 2.3 जो इन्होंने अब version निकाला है. I've used 2.1 but on mobile sets. Haven't had the chance, but I have an iPhone. And I've used the iPad, so I have a pretty good idea of how iOS functions.
So what do you think the comparison is? How does it work?
iOS is more intuitive. It's something that I find for beginners is easier to pick up. There's a slightly larger learning curve as far as Android's systems
No,
go.
why exactly is
especially
that?
because now the
That comes
Android,
from you.
the
You're a
Android,
nerd.
yeah, but the Android systems, you know what? HTC जो भी manufacturers है ना, आपका HTC हो गया, Samsung हो गया, जितने भी ये tablets और portable devices जो use करते हैं Android को, they build upon the actual, whether it's Froyo or Honeycomb, whatever, they build upon the UI. Like HTC introduces its Sense UI, right?
Yeah, they do.
So
they
it's-
build something on top of it.
They build an additional layer on top of
I
it,
used
Um,
HTC Wildfire for a while, and I actually dumped
which
the
uses the
device.
Sense UI
Yeah,
actually.
I didn't like the Sense UI. I wanted
ठीक
to
है.
flash the bloody device.
So
and go
your
back to Android. plain
exactly.
vanilla.
So your experience of Android is completely dependent upon the kind of device you are using and what additional layers. The only devices that use the unaltered Android original Android UIs are Google's own.
Yeah, I used that. I had an iPad, small one, and I think it had 1.7.2, I think. And I don't think there was anything on top of the normal Android interface, and it was pretty okay. I mean,
If
aside
it's
from
HTC or Samsung, then it most or Dell, it most definitely
Chinese
does.
no, it
device,
was a
right? The iPad
really
was
cheap Chinese device.
I think Chinese
Okay.
devices will just take Android and plonk it straight in.
Then they don't.
But
But
I was looking at the internet yesterday, in fact, and I saw this laptop which had Android in it, and that wasn't a touch screen tablet type laptop. It was a standard flip open 7-inch screen with a keyboard laptop.
Yeah.
And for me, that seemed like a game changer.
But do you know what? Dell has introduced a new line of laptops, netbooks essentially, not full-fledged notebooks, that are convertibles. It's a laptop with a normal with a hinge display, right? But it flips and turns into a
Yeah,
tablet.
which is what my HP Touch Smart laptop was, right? It used to flip open like this, and then you'd flip it around.
Yeah.
Well, you can
But
do
was
that.
horrible.
You can go the other way around as well. You have hardware keyboards for tablets, like the iPad has a
Right.
separate, I mean, complete
Yeah,
keyboard.
but can you imagine going somewhere on a train or at a at an airport, and you first disassemble your keyboard, then you plug it in, and then you find a place to put it. That's not convenient. Having it
Yeah.
in one laptop shape, at least you can put it on your leg and on your lap, as it were, and actually start working. So there is something to be said for having the keyboard, I think, inside or with the device itself. So
Yeah, I
especially-
think that-
I'm klutzy when it comes to touch. I'm quite klutzy. I prefer my old-fashioned Nokia, which doesn't have a touch screen, and I like the button interface. I like to SMS through buttons. So for me, when I saw that device yesterday, I was like, dude, kuch hai.
No, again, now with the size of the device, that matters. Now with the iPad, the keyboard is large enough that you can type comfortably,
Right.
right? Even though the keyboard configuration is not
Also
really that
things
comfortable.
like
But
what kind of touchscreen is being used. The newer capacitive touchscreens are much more accurate, and also the kind of, again, software is being used. The most accurate according to benchmarks keyboard in touch is actually employed not by Android or by Apple but by Windows 7.
Really?
Windows 7 for
Hi,
mobiles.
Microsoft will rule again, will it?
No.
This is horrible. Please don't say that.
No, because they
Cannot,
release
what's
crappy.
wrong? I mean, like they're finally getting their act right.
Yeah, and they're tying up with the other dying giant called Nokia. How nice. So two dying giants will get together and try to take on the brash boys from Apple.
Well, I mean,
Google
the thing is, Apple is just too. I mean, like I love the iPad. I love its functionality, but the limitations just drive me nuts. Just crazy. I mean, like you can't change anything. You can't add on anything. You can't modify. You can't mod.
Especially with Google and Android gearing up with, you know, the introduction of the new Google Marketplace, Amazon's Marketplace, Android apps ki jo market hai, wo suddenly it's going to explode in the next year or two.
Yeah, it's about time. I mean, like because.
Well, everyone doesn't want to be an Apple fan. For someone like me, I have resisted the temptation to go Apple.
Right here.
20 years, you know. I've used Apple in office, in workspace, but never bought an Apple for myself. No Apple devices in my house. Sorry.
Yeah, same here.
Overpriced junk, basically.
No, it's not junk. I mean, it's fine for what it is, but I don't agree with
Irfan got an iPad for free, so he's going to be talking a little bit about
my
his
opinion.
Well, I like the iPad. Okay, I like it. I like the user experience, and until like something better comes along in the same, you know, category, same user experience, I would love to go for a similar sized and functionality, you know, Android-based tablet.
Well, we might see a few come out this year.
Yeah, well, they're taking their time.
Right.
One thing that one tablet that I was really looking forward to was by NVIDIA. The NVIDIA, I think it's called right now. It's called the Tegra.
They've started introducing Tegra processors into mobiles, though.
So that's basically a graphic card with a screen on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, well,
Sounds interesting.
everything's basically pointing towards tighter integration of the CPU and GPU. Core functions जो actually अब divide होते हैं across both.
That's true. We'll talk more about that in the next program. We'll talk about GPU processing, and we'll also take on the Apple versus Intel war to its logical conclusion in the next episode.
This one was a little boring, you know. I mean, like, it didn't really get warmed up, and you know.
Yeah. So next time we'll try to be a little more prepared, and we'll come up with better arguments. We might actually plan the next shoot. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. Not sure. I think it's just like.
This is going to be like Geek Central. Nobody is going to log on to watch us talk about iPads and.
You have no idea, but sometimes the weirdest things get the weirdest responses from the weirdest people. So if you have a fan club starting up before you leave for the US, you'll know where it came from.
I just want to diss creative chaos.
Why?
All right.
Why do you want to do that?
I'm just kidding. I wouldn't really want to. They do good websites.
We'll try and bring in Umair Mohsin or Ali Diwan, one
please,
of
he
our
talked.
guest experts next time to have some more fun.
He'd
at
talk
their
the
expense.
walls off.
Yeah, it's like, you know,
Throw in
like
a random guest.
enjoy things. I think it's like I'm feeling too formal sitting over here,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah,
and
well,
especially with you holding that mic and you
I
look
know,
like.
guys, next time I'll need a cordless so that Irfan doesn't get intimidated with my mic. And with that, we sign off. And that we sign off today's episode of 10011.
And we have to come up with a title.
Yes,
This
so-
is not the title.
So if any of you can think of a title for our tech show, we're going to be doing this on a regular basis. Whether Ahmed is around or not, Irfan and I will have one other guest with us, and we'll be recording this in the Zab Media Sciences studio here in Zabist, Karachi. That's all for us today. Thank you very much.